think of how much things are different. How much things are different. And, when you're coaching a college basketball team, people ask all the time, well, like, you're getting into the college basketball and everybody else is getting out. Well, my thing is, it's not that different for me because I wasn't a college basketball coach the last 25 years. I covered the game. I played the game. My brother coached the game. But I didn't experience what recruiting used to be like. So comparing it to now is not that big a deal. But we've all watched this NFL draft evolved into where, just even the thought of taking it on the road, would it work? It's been a stunning success. But do we realize how much college football has changed in just the last 12 months, but especially in the last 5 years? Right? Because you have guys that this is the last year supposedly of the COVID year senior rule. So a lot of teams were able to compete against a higher level of competition because you had 24, 25, sometimes 26-year-old guys competing. And we're not talking about BYU and people went on a Mormon mission. This was fairly commonplace in college football, guys playing in their 5th and 6th year. So you had COVID year guys still existing in college football. You've had the transfer portal, which let's not blame the transfer portal. It's the fact that there are no rules that make you sit out a year when you transfer. So guys are at multiple schools, sometimes 2, 3, 4, even 5 or 6 schools. Additionally, the Power 5 conferences became Power 4 this year, and there's been a massive shift in the level of competition in the SEC and Big Ten in comparison to the ACC. Right? The ACC, SMU was in the college football playoff as one of the 2 teams repping the ACC. SMU. It doesn't mean that they weren't a good team, but they didn't have elite talent. But the only reason they got there was had a bunch of money, threw money at guys, and had better talent than the rest of the ACC, which was kind of financially deprived in comparison to the SEC and the Big Ten. The Big 12, the SEC, and the Big Ten all changed their leagues and, in many ways, expanded the number of Power 4 sorts of teams. That's a change. And we had the first ever true college football playoff this year. We had an expanded field, not just 4 teams, had 12 teams. So that changed what we watched, how we watched, and when we paid attention and what we paid attention to. So if you have that much upheaval in the same sport and at the level that feeds your sport in the NFL draft, there is very, very likely to be that much upheaval in the NFL draft. Does that make sense? And if you're like, that doesn't really affect the NFL. Oh, really? Really? Just do yourself a favor and look back at last year's NFL draft. Right? Caleb Williams was a transfer from Oklahoma to USC. Right? Jaden Daniels was a transfer from Arizona State to LSU. Right? Now, Drake May wasn't a transfer, but he played at Drake. Drake May played at North Carolina. Michael Penix Jr. was at Washington. He was a transfer, having played previously at Indiana. Last year was a quarterback draft, but part of the Bo Nix transfer from Auburn. Those guys had played 3 or 4 years at their previous spot and had transferred, so they were older. So we could go through the whole draft, but the idea that, hey, this is a weird draft just because there's not a ton of quarterbacks that'll go in the first round, and there's one running back, how high will he go? And we don't know a lot of these non-skill position players. Yeah, all that is true, but you can't deny, and if you do deny, you're just blind to the reality of what's changing in college football. If college football changes as much as it has, right? COVID year seniors, expansion of the Big Ten, expansion of the SEC, plus the ACC, there's been kind of a talent void in the ACC. Then you factor in that a college football playoff changes what we watch, how we watch, what's important, how much teams can develop guys. And then the last factor is players are staying in school longer. They just are. Why would you leave? I mean, look, I'll just say this about my star player is a guy named Anthony Roy. And Anthony Roy desperately wanted to go in the NBA draft. Desperately wanted to go in the NBA draft. But my messaging to him, and he just signed with Oklahoma State, with my alma mater, was, hey, dude, that's always there for you. But once you leave college, the college money isn't here for you anymore. You can't go to the NBA, get cut, and be like, you know what, I want to try college again. Doesn't work. And what we told him, which is accurate, is you are guaranteed to make probably 2x of what you would make if you're a second-round pick in the NBA draft if you stay in college. You're an idiot if you go and you risk losing that when the NFL or the NBA is always there for you. So why is the NFL draft different this year? Well, fewer underclassmen, because if you have any eligibility and you can get paid, you stay and get paid in college football. The landscape has changed in terms of what teams are important and what teams have money, and that's where all the teams that have players. And like again, here's another part to the transfer portal, which is teams are new teams every year, completely new rosters. So the first 3 or 4 games of the year, the stats aren't necessarily accurate because coaches are trying to figure out their rosters because they may or may not have spring games. All that causes a different style of draft that we haven't seen before. Fewer underclassmen. In this case, the quarterback market is not great. And generally older players, but ones that have been at multiple schools.